Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 152, Alexander the Mercurial Paladin. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Tanya DePass's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello and welcome to another month's exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I've got an amazing guest for you this month, but before I reveal who we are speaking with today, you know I have to do it. I have to leave you in suspense with the ad read. This podcast is brought to you by Plus One EXP and their brand new RPG Zine Club. It's a golden age of indie and small press RPGs. For the last several years, Plus One has made it our mission to help new indie creators and small press imprints get their products onto tables worldwide. Our highest goal is to create more sustainable and equitable pathways to getting games made and played. Now we want to take on our most ambitious project yet with RPG Zine Club. What is RPG Zine Club? It is a monthly membership subscription service featuring fresh zines from emerging and expanding creators across the globe. It's our way of inviting GMs, players, and zine lovers everywhere to invest more intentionally in the creative community. It's crowdsourced support without crowdfunding. Now, what are some of the features you have to look forward to when you join the RPG Zine Club? Well, you've got monthly releases with 2 20 to 44 page saddle stitch zines. Take your pick from story zines, adventure zines, or get both kinds. You can get print and digital or digital only of your favorite titles. Join the Clubhouse Discord. It's a section of our online community for club members to discuss and play new titles. Get the best prices guaranteed. You can select your frequency of how often you'd like titles, and you can get what you want and only get what you want. If you miss a month, there's no worries there. You can add recent titles to your month's order and get an annual surprise each February after your first anniversary. Get access to special content, including interviews, how to play videos, and special content for Zine Club titles. Do you like free pizza? Fill out one of the RPG Zine Club passports and redeem it for free pizza at events. You're going to get to encounter new and known designers. We source the best voices from across the RPG design community. We curate zines based on community interest and feedback to help you discover your new favorite creators. We are DIE focused. Plus One is committed to championing diversity, inclusion, and equity in our projects. Creators with diverse experiences make our community better. Zine Club prioritizes creating equity for all of our creators. And it's more than a purchase. Your subscriptions will let us invest more heavily in our print partners and provide them with potentially life-changing support by consolidating scores or hundreds of purchases as the club grows. So, if you want more details, please be sure to go to the website rpgzine.club, and this all can be found also by going to the website plus1exp.com. On that website, if you're making a purchase for a beard balm, a lip balm, beard RPG, or whatnot, and you're looking for a code to use at checkout, be sure to use the code Randolph, RANDOLPH, and save some coin on your purchase. Again, the website to get the discounts from me and provide a kickback to me to help support the podcast would be plus1exp.com with code Randolph, and be sure to go and check out the brand new rpgzine.club. All right. And without further ado, I turn the microphone over to my guest and I ask, hello, mystery contestant. Would you care to introduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
Hello, everyone over on the internet and over on Sidekicks. My name's Tanya DePass, also known as Cypher of Tier Online. And what I do is internet ne'er-do-well, jokingly. Do a lot of TTRPG stuff, freelance video game developer because the industry is what the industry is, and I stream a lot of random games. Have been doing so for about 11 years, Twitch partner for about 8, and usually just cause trouble on the internet, hopefully the good kind.
Yes, and yeah, you're someone definitely that I've been following for a while on social media, just because of all the various projects that you're in, and I was kind of nervous, like, oh, do I do like a whole big bio read off? But I feel like I wouldn't be able to fully do it justice, just because of all that you do online.
I'm a human being like everyone else listening to this podcast, unless there's a beholder hanging out somewhere that we don't know about. I do a lot of stuff, but what I try to make people remember is I'm human. I roll my d20 the same way anyone else does. Hope for a crit, and I've just been very fortunate and have both done the work and also had people looking out for me to get to where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I love that too. This is a one man band kind of a podcast, so I feel very much the same thing of like, hey, I'm just a 37-year-old dad. That's just I love D&D. I love interviewing and talking with all kinds of people, from all different walks of life, whether they are the perceived people on the pedestals or just like my friends and family. Because everyone's got a viewpoint and everyone's got a unique perspective, and getting to learn more about each other, I feel like we do a better job of being able to tell a more well-rounded sort of story.
Absolutely. And as for the pedestal thing, I feel like the industry and the community, air quotes, would do a lot better if we stopped putting people on pedestals.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people, whether they want to be there, whether they aspire to be there, or get put there and then are like, please, God, let me off of this thing as soon as I can.
Hmm.
We need to remember that other creators are people. Yeah, they're talented, they do whatever, that, they've got something you really like watching or viewing or listening to. They are still people. And at
Hmm.
the end of the day, I really wish that we would stop putting people on pedestals because it can only come to a bad end.
True, yes. And I do try and do my best to keep things upbeat and positive. But, everyone who follows along with the news and the hobby, of course, knows all the sorts of ups and downs that have happened and gone on. So hopefully this podcast, this humble little silly sort of thing helps to brighten someone's day. And we just hit our big milestone recently of crossing 20,000 downloads. So I know,
Awesome.
yeah, I know in the grand scheme of things, as like major or other podcasts out there, that seems like like, oh, 20,000, no big deal. But the fact that this program, this experiment is so sort of niche. I remember talking with Andrew Strother on his podcast when he interviewed me years ago in the midst of the pandemic, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you and me." And like at the time, James Introcaso are doing these D&D podcasts that have like nothing to do with like actual plays, and we're not one of the ones that are like explaining rules or like history or something of the hobby. It's just like we're literally trying this experimental interview, making up something sort of a thing. So I like, and I'm proud of me being able to continue on now in the midst of our sixth season here. So welcome to the sixth season, and thank you again so much for being a guest.
You're welcome, and congratulations. That's not a small milestone. So a lot of people don't keep going. A lot of people don't, you know, keep doing things for the love of doing it. They're so obsessed with the numbers that they
Mm-hmm.
don't hit a certain milestone, then they stop doing it without realizing, if I stop doing the thing, I will never hit the milestone I'm trying to hit. So good on all of you.
Yeah, what is it? The often picture that's shown on Facebook where it's the guy digging in the mine and then he looks sad and dejected and he's turning around because like, oh, if he had just dug like the one more foot through the dirt, he would have found the humongous diamond, whereas the other guy maybe has a smaller pickaxe, but he's like still working his way through the dirt to find the mother lode of all of scores or whatever.
Yep.
Well, this podcast is Dungeons and Dragons themed, so I would be remiss if I did not ask you the question, do you currently or have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons before?
Well, yes, I've been playing D&D, since Redbox. And, I was on 2 D&D official shows, Rivals of Waterdeep and then Black Dice Society. Not currently playing just for the big bad of everyone's schedule, which is getting 5 or 6 people together in order to play on a regular basis.
Mhm.
But I would love to get back to it. I'd love to get back to actually doing an actual play, but money. There is no money in this right now, and I don't have the personal funds to pay people to do a show.
Mm.
So, if there's anyone looking for a cast member, I might not say no. It all depends on who it is, et cetera, et cetera. I have no shame. It's how I got where I am. But, I've got all my books. I'm very fortunate that Wizards still keeps me on the PR list. I'm up to date on all my books. I got the 2024 books.
Mhm.
But for several years, D&D was a big part of not just my creativity, but like part of what I do, part of what people know me for.
Mhm. So what's that experience like? Because I know our good friend of the podcast, Goblin Katie, aka Katie Downey, has been able to share like some of her perspective of like, oh yeah, the one time when I was at a convention in Georgia and I got to meet Chris Perkins, and some of these other guests of the podcast that I've talked to get to share their perspectives and insights as far as getting to work with the IP holder and as officially produced actual plays. So getting to be part of, Rivals of Waterdeep and the Black Dice Society, which I know in all honesty, I definitely have those on my list of like, oh, I need to go back and watch those. But of course, the plethora of entertainment that's out there in my only so many hours in the day, I just have not gotten around to watching them. But I will definitely make sure I try and prioritize that, just because I'm sure I'm missing out on a great story and a fantastic narrative. But all that to say, how do you feel that experience was getting to get to be part of those actual plays, to play these characters and to get to show a perspective of playing Dungeons and Dragons?
It was good. So for those who don't know, Rivals of Waterdeep premiered at the Stream of Many Eyes. Oh God, 2018. Yeah, 2018. It feels like that was both a million years ago and the other day. Shout out to Greg Tito forever and ever for reaching out and helping us put together the cast and the show and getting us out to LA for that event. That was pretty wild because, like I stream, I do other stuff, I do public speaking. So being in front of a camera was not new for me. But we
Mhm.
also had a group. Some of us were experienced players and DMs. Some people had never played before. And, a lot of people say this about the show and about our group, which isn't the case. We were brought together to show how easy it is to learn 5th edition. We just happened to pull together an all POC cast to show how easy it is to play 5th edition. And, it was very cool to be there, be in costume, be in LA, show off our characters. And also, it wasn't the purpose, but to be there and show that, yes, people of color play D&D. Yes, Black people
Mhm.
play D&D, that we are part of this grouping. And it was very cool because we had like some really cool clutch moments. And it was also, there was the business side, which I think people need to understand.
Mhm.
Running actual play is not cheap. If you want to pay people, whether or not, wherever the money's coming from, whether you're fundraising, doing Patreon, what have you, one season of Rivals, including studio time, including paying everyone, including production, was a 5-digit affair every season.
Wow.
So, and this is also 3 to 4 hours every Sunday out of people's schedules, because until the pandemic, we were meeting in a studio in Chicago every Sunday and, doing a live stream on the D&D channel until we moved to our own Twitch channel. So it was fun. It was great. I got to reconnect with people I knew but hadn't seen in a while because I brought in a couple friends from our podcasting days and game reviewing, game journalism, and then Greg had recruited some other folks that we didn't know, and through that we became friends. And it was also just, and I'm sure you know this, there is nothing that beats that time spent together at the table. It's emotional, it's vulnerable, it's something where you have that cool moment of, I get to do this as part of making my living. And the additional part of it, and again, we didn't do it for this reason, but we wound up doing live shows at C2E2, which is our local Comic-Con in Chicago. We wound up doing live shows at PAX's. And to have people, especially Black people, especially for me, Black femmes, come up and go, I see you all doing this. I know that I too can go do this, whether it's just streaming their show on Twitch. I shouldn't say just, but if it's streaming a show on Twitch, whether it's putting out a podcast, that people saw that there is a place for them. And that was a great bonus to doing the show. In addition to, I'm a big nerd. I like to roll dice. I like to tell stories. But it was also a lot of work. And I think people need to understand that whether it's an audio podcast, whether it's a Twitch stream, whether it's a pre-recorded post-production affair, you're spending a lot of money and time, at least on something with high production value. And last thing about this, not everyone needs to be on an official show. Not everyone needs to aim to be the next crit roll, because we should all stop trying to do that, because crit roll is crit roll. That magic moment was theirs, and that was 11 years ago. Let that go. You are not going to capture lightning in a bottle with your podcast. The other side of it is you also have to put in the work. You have to put in the work to, find people that work well together, that are going to be professional. If you're putting yourself out there in the sense of, we want to put this out here, we want to make money off of it, we want to do whatever. But if you're doing it for the fun of doing it and you just want to record it and people listen if they listen, if not, that's great too. Because I feel like too many people try to monetize the hobby.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I was reticent for the longest time to even start a Patreon, because I agree with what you said as far as like, oh, everyone's rushing to monetize something. It's like, oh, join my Patreon so you can get like pins and buttons and dice and, after exclusive after talk shows and all this stuff, which is fun and good if like you were saying, like if you front load it with, production and a team, a one-man band.
Right.
It's a little harder to do all that sort of stuff, which is why I was reticent for so long. But with Goblin Katie and my mom and dad and my good buddy Anson, those have been my core like Patreon supporters, which is great. And slowly I'm getting more people on the Patreon on the free tier, which is completely fine. But again, being a 37-year-old dad of a 4-year-old, it's even taken me until now to finally catch up on Patreon rewards. And I certainly am like, I don't want to, neglect this and, monetize this. So I'm just happy that people are listening to the podcast, and I hope that they're taking these NPCs and they're using them in their character backstories or their games. If anything, I'm certainly mining them for my one-on-one D&D game that I've been running over Google Docs for like over the last year. So it's been incredible, in all facets of this podcast, big and small.
Yeah, and that's what I think people, and this is me, like, I'm being the old in the room, but I feel like people, and this goes with streaming, this goes with any other creation or trying to do something, whether it's making dice, whether it's anything you're trying to do, is do it for the love of doing it. And if other people find it, other people enjoy it, great. Because I at one point during the height of the pandemic, I was like, I love to run Dragon Age again, but also I realized how much time and effort it is. I like to pay people for their time, and I tried to fundraise for it, make it a coffee goal, and I got maybe 10% of the way. And it's hard because the unprecedented times we're living in, it is hard, and people sometimes have to make really hard decisions about where their money goes and who they support. And that is, I will never begrudge anyone of like, well, I have to take care of X, Y, and Z before I have any spare money, if I have spare money. So that is a very roundabout way of saying, follow what you want to do, but don't get into it to be rich or even make a lot of money. And that's where I think a lot of people fall down, because they think like, oh, well, I can just be my own boss, I can do whatever. But if you're working with an IP holder like we were with Wizards, you also have to remember, if you're on their stream, what is it you're signing? Read your contract thoroughly. Or if you want to get together and start a collective with friends and say, okay, well, this person is going to be the engineer, this person is going to be the streamer, what have you. Still, in doing business with anyone, but especially with friends, have a contract, read it, and follow it. The professionalism must be there first and foremost, if that is your intent and end goal. But understand that you can do something for the love of doing it. You do not have to monetize every single hobby you have.
Right. We can all just be Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones, and if you build it, they will come and they will play baseball.
Oh, I wish that was true. I actually did a panel at TwitchCon now 3 years ago, And we talked about streaming as a career versus streaming as a hobby. And we did include, things like, trying to do your home game, your TTRPG stuff on Twitch.
Mhm.
And it was very interesting of the people that literally had the idea of, well, I put it out there. Where's everyone at? People have always told me they love my art. They love my crochet. They love it when I guest on a TTRPG stream, but where are the people to support me? And it's like, you got to do the work to market yourself. You will wear many hats trying to do this as a career versus a hobby.
Right. And you said, "Oh, speaking as an older person with experience." You just said that of like, "Oh, where is everyone?" I've felt that at times with this podcast, but then I also remember 37-year-old dad with a 4-year-old, and I'm like, "Man, I'm just too old with social media. I'm tired. I don't want to be, part of my day job is working with a nonprofit, and there's a whole team of people that take care of the social media stuff. I don't have that. And I also don't want to just be doom scrolling or posting brain rot or memes for the sake of like getting clicks and eyeballs. I want to stand on the goofy title names of the episodes. I want to stand on the fact of the interesting and fun conversations I get to have with people, and I want that to be bringing people in. So if it takes me, another 6 seasons to get to 40,000 downloads, well, then I will be happy with that, and I will be satisfied and content with my place in life.
Yeah. And I mean, and you're doing it for the right reason. You're doing this because you enjoy it. And I think that comes through when you make this kind of podcast, or when you stream, or whatever it is that you're doing. It's going to come through if you're doing it because you truly love it, versus I'm doing this and I really need to pay my rent with this month. Spoiler, I've been streaming 11 years. I have never made enough to pay my rent off a single month of streaming on Twitch. So, money was quote unquote good when we were doing the live show, not live shows, but the AP, but that was a contracted gig where we knew money was coming at some point.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so we had the Rivals of Waterdeep, and then the Black Dice Society, if I understand. That was kind of the more Van Richten, Barovia,
Yes.
Curse of Strahd flavored campaign.
Yes, and B. Dave Walters was our DM and our producer for all of that, and he had reached out to me and then everyone who wound up on the show, going, "Hey, I got this opportunity. Wizards wants to let us do an AP. Would you be interested?" And for me, it was like, "Hey, I get a chance to work B. Dave. He's my homie, but also I get to be darker. I get to play a dark character, because while Celeste was not a dark or evil character, she was morally gray as a paladin, since you can do that in 5th edition now. You don't have to be all sweetness and light."
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, no, I get to be a dark character. Sign me up. Sign me up right now.
Oh man, yeah, and I, of course, I've seen B. Dave Walters has also done fabulous, successful stuff with Vampire the Masquerade, and he would be a fascinating person to talk to as well. Add him to the Rolodex of people to eventually reach out to.
Yes.
But awesome. And then also, if I'm to understand, you were involved in the production of Into the Motherlands. Is that correct?
So with Into the Motherlands, initially it was an AP on my Twitch channel. I pitched an idea to Twitch, and of the ideas I pitched, Motherlands is what formed out of that. Because they were like, let's try to have something original. And I was like, cool, because I had pitched like yet more D&D. I'd pitched like Star Trek, the RPG. I'd pitched all this other stuff. And they're like, what if you could just tell your own story? And I was like, oh. And with B. Dave, because B. Dave is sometimes in my brain, we joke that we're tadpoled on occasion, aka BG3. And we sat down and hammered out a concept, hammered out everything, presented Twitch. They said yes. And the response to it was enough where we were like, would people want to play this if we made a game? And we did. And then we have been beset by every cursed thing that could happen to a Kickstarter project. So if you back the Kickstarter, I'm sorry. But also the world is kind of burning, and tariffs. So we're getting there. But we had a publisher, then they got out of publishing RPGs entirely.
Wow.
And then we were going to use a preconceived, I almost said metrics, preconceived system. The licensing for that did not work out. We had to make our own system. And if you've never designed your own system for an RPG, that is a lot of work. We had to bring in more people, it added more time, yada, yada. It's just been cursed at this point. and it will come out. As for the printed books, who knows, because tariffs, we are trying to get the PDF out soon.
Okay. Well, we will keep that all in our prayers that will all resolve, and will be, you'll be like, man, all the struggles that we had trying to get this thing produced. Well, now it's here, and now it's awesome, and everyone's loving it. So,
Once that book is out the door, I'm never going to think about it again.
oh. Well, this is just, a wonderful discussion getting to learn more about you, and especially, with the vast amounts of stories you've been able to tell and play in since your Redbox days. So I think this would be good to segue into the namesake of the show, which is the sidekicks and the side quests. So, Miss Tanya, do you happen to have a favorite NPC or sidekick character, whether they're from one of your many games you've played in, video game, movie, film, television, literature, etc.? And why is this character your favorite NPC or sidekick character?
So, anyone who talks to me for more than 30 seconds knows I'm a big Dragon Age nerd. And my favorite character of the series is Fenris, who's in Dragon Age 2. And I did base a character I played off of him in a very long ago campaign, a 3.5 campaign. But I just love the character growth he goes through, and also the kind of grumpy, snarly, snappy lone wolf character that learns to open up and learns to grow and grows up through the course of Dragon Age 2. And, he's an elf. So, oh, look, I can be an elf. Surprise.
I know I have not been a Dragon Age player myself, but I know it is often, claimed as one of the favorites out there on the podcast. So very cool. Like you said, the lone wolf that grows on you. That's cool. I like that. And then same thing with the side quest portion. What's been a favorite side quest or B plot element? Again, same criteria: movie, film, video games, television, literature, etc., history, even. And why has this been your favorite side quest or B plot element?
Oh, wow, this might stump me because I've been thinking about it, and kind of going back to Dragon Age, but the first Dragon Age, early in the game, there's a side mission to save the Mabari, which is the warhound of the series. And you have to go find a specific flower, save this dog, and the dog becomes your companion. But also there's I have a homebrew thing that I do usually for one shots called the Infernal Goose Chase. And you have to find and kill a kaiju-sized goose. But it's in Avernus. Yes. And without fail, my players always wander off the path I have set them upon. Once they even got to the point where they didn't even get to Avernus. They negotiated and one of my players rolled very high on an animal handling, animal friendship. They got a 32 because they're a ranger and got a nat 20. They talked the dragon not only out of killing them and the villagers, but also it taught it about sustainable farming and ethical farming. So that became a side quest, which became the rest of the game, because I was like, well, they're not gonna die now, I guess. They're never gonna meet the goose. And if you ever watch the VOD, you can see the real time. I'm the GIF of the math over the face. That is me trying to figure out, what do I do? They're not even gonna get to the goose. Well,
Yep, it's how suddenly a side quest can quickly turn into the main plot based on the choices of our characters.
And the dice, because the dice were definitely in their favor on that time.
Indeed. And then the way that we round out the personal interview section of the episode, what are you passionate about and why?
Relating to TTRPGs or in general?
It can be either, both, something else entirely.
Well, in regards to TTRPGs, is having fun while you're doing this and remembering that the GM is a player too. That we should really get out of the mindset of a versus the GM and the players instead of this is collaboration. Because, like I played when it was still very much like a go in and murder everything and steal their treasure. And that was kind of the definition of playing. Versus now, a lot of people are very narrative in their storytelling. You have these drawn out moments, you have character growth, you have very emotional, vulnerable moments in your campaign. And I like the idea of going from like level 1 to level 20 if possible, because there's so much growth that comes from you as a player, but also what you see the character going through. Because we all know that we put ourselves in our characters. We can't help it. People like to think they're above it and they don't put themselves in the characters they play. We absolutely do it. And, also having those kind of light bulb moments when you're playing. I'm passionate about everyone kind of getting a chance to shine, because I'm sure we've all had the unfortunate experience of playing with someone who doesn't know how to share the spotlight. They don't know how to be anything other than try to be the main character every session. And so I want everyone to have fun, to have that hero moment. Now, granted, if they're playing an evil character, maybe they have their villain moment, but I just want everyone to enjoy things. In terms of personal stuff or the world in general, justice, because we are living and struggling in a very unjust world today as we record this. And there's no reason we should be at this point in the world's history. There's no point. There's no reason we should all be struggling so deeply, that we have people going without food, shelter, medication, that we have people that may have this beautiful bright light inside them to create, to do things that we'll never know, that they'll never get to enjoy, because every day is a struggle to survive. And that's why I'm passionate about. Whatever small way I can do that is helping people either find some joy, being silly on stream, doing whatever I can, but also just kind of being there as support for people, and hoping that, and this isn't trying to say I'm like a great person. I'm often not a great person, or even a good person some days, but, having people find compassion again, having people hopefully get back to doing the right thing, and finding that love for other people. And that's not to say like everybody and let them walk over you. I don't believe in that either. But finding the goodness and compassion themselves and bringing that back out in the world, because we don't see it anymore. What we're living through right now is just proof of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly make no apologies on this podcast of my Catholicity, and I certainly don't try and Bible thump anyone over the head who comes on as a guest of the podcast either. It's just that ethos helps to form the spirit of this podcast. So I very much resonate with what you say. It's like, yeah, the Beatitudes, the Golden Rule, like, Catholic social teaching, all these things that, people are ignorant of, or they don't take advantage of it. They're not doing their part. As you were explaining it, yeah, just the words in my head, Christ talking about like, oh, you will always have the poor, but you will not always have me. And coupling that along with, what you did for the least of my brothers and sisters, you did for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all a good reminder. I know, yeah, especially the times we're in and current events and all they are. Because I know this episode will come out in August. But as we're recording right now, it's the No King protests that are happening today across the country, and of course the startling news out of Minnesota for those politicians. So certainly everyone in our prayers, and all that we can do in our local communities, to make a positive impact and change, and where our talents are best allocated and how we can help others, we should definitely try and do that.
So fun fact, I grew up Catholic. I'm no longer practicing, but there were many things that I still take with me, and there's also things I take from following Asatruar, because Tyr, is a deity in the Nordic path, not just a D&D deity, because a lot of people assume that my username comes from D&D. Actually, it doesn't. So we can find a righteous path no matter what the end light is.
And then there we go. That is the personal interview section of the show. And now it is time to head into some NPC creation. NPC creation is brought to you by you, the podcast audience, and our patrons from Patreon. So now is the time in the show where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. I've only got a cup of water today, but that's okay. Hey, you gotta hydrate. You gotta keep your body healthy. So to you, Anson Jablinski, and good old mom and dad, we say cheers. Again, all these folks are donating at least $2 or more a month. They're actually all wealthy tier, which means they get to introduce an element of chance to our random tables that we have. So if we're going to roll some dice here today and randomly generate a character, we might get to hear some of their responses used today. So if you want to learn more about our Patreon community, you should check out the show notes below, go to the podcast website, or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. Find out about all of the tiers of accommodations that we have awaiting for you in the levitating platter. Help us to grow and expand our operations in this demi-plane and worlds beyond. All right, so now we're here in the section where we get to make up an NPC. So I know before we started recording, we were debating like, are we going to bring a character in? Are we going to randomize a character? Or are we going to do a mix and match of both? So what is it that you would like to do today?
Let's roll for stats, but the character could be a warrior elf, not a drow. And Fenris's thing in the game is that he was put through a ritual that basically gave him great power, but stripped everything from him. Mm-hmm. So this could be he's gotten his memories back, but he still has things to do in the world, so we can randomize everything else.
Okay, so we've got an idea of a character that we're working with. We'll just work our way through the questions. So if we have an answer for it, we'll plug that in. Or if you don't have an answer, then we'll roll the aforementioned dice and we'll see what we get.
Cool.
Okay, so then the first question here, what is going to be the name of the character? It sounds like maybe Fenris?
Well, Fenris is, also property of BioWare.
Oh, true, yeah.
Well, what's interesting is his actual name, because they do the whole, once he finds out who he is, his actual name is Leto, which I'm sure is a nod to Dune, which is timely because Dune Awakening just came out. Let's call him Alexander.
Okay, Alexander. Okay. Perfectly good conquering hero sort of a name, had his old empire and such. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so we got the character name. And so the ancestry of the character, you did specify that you wanted elvish, not drow, but is there any specific flavoring of elf? I know there's a bunch of different ones. I even have some homebrew flavor of elves as well.
Oh. I would say eladrin, because eladrin are like so out there powerful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, eladrin, perfect. Yeah, so from the Feywild, has the ability to shift through the seasons. Perfect. Okay. And then let's see. So name, answer. What is the job or role in society for Alexander?
Mercenary with a side of vengeance, with a hint of paladin, as he's trying to right the wrongs done to him and others. So he's a mercenary paladin.
Ooh, okay. paladin for hire. Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. And then let's see. How old is Alexander?
Well, elves in the Feywild can get up there, so he's an adult elf, so let's say 250.
Okay, 250, perfect. And then, so if we were rolling dice, this is the part where I get to say, and now we take a pause from the dice rolling as we now ask the question, can you describe the physical appearance of Alexander, the paladin for hire eladrin mercenary adult?
So this eladrin is tall, because eladrin, if I recall correctly, get to be pretty tall, because we had an eladrin that is in Black Dice Society that my character wound up romancing. I would say 6.5 feet tall, brown skin, has tattoos that are white ink.
Okay.
Because lyrium doesn't exist in D&D. And various, like, they're tribal tattoos of places he's lived, places he's encountered. They're a living memory of the life he's led so far, both in and out of the Feywild. White hair, piercings in both ears. Even though he introduces himself sometimes as a paladin, he wears like leather armor for ease of movement, things like that, so he can handily fight people and take them on and not be weighed down by heavy armor. Even though his preferred weapon is a two-handed sword, he does carry a short bow and a quiver. And on occasion, he can, if he can have it, he can summon a an animal companion from the Feywild. Which companion I will leave up to you because I don't remember what's in the Feywild.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of creatures, and that certainly leaves it up to customizability for players that are going to introduce Alexander in their backstory, or dungeon masters that are like, great, I've got an eladrin paladin for hire. What sort of animal companion they summon will be the flavor of the tone of their campaign. So perfect. Okay,
Huzzah.
huzzah! All right. Yeah, no, that's a cool detail you were saying about the white ink on the brown skin and telling the story of where he lived. I was getting a very Maui, the Disney Maui, and
Yeah,
I know my son has a book. It's like a children's version of like the encyclopedia of legends and myths and stuff like that. And so there's a story in there. The story is in there about Maui, and so the Polynesian depiction of Maui, and he's got all the tattoos. And I'm like, yeah, this is like the real story of Maui, not necessarily like the Disney one that we've seen, which is fun to sing along with The Rock and all that stuff. But yeah, cool. Are there any interesting particular scenes that are depicted or locations, or is that just depending on where Alexander is and whichever campaign will be unique to that world?
Well, I mean, the one that's always visible, I would think, on his right arm is dedicated to his time in the Feywild, both as a young elf and then when he returned after
Oh,
he kind of was gone through his journey of training, his montage, has been out in the moral realm and Faerun, not Feywild.
hmm.
But the others could be up to interpretation.
Okay. Okay. And is there a particular deity that he serves? Would that be indicated in any way on his leather armor or his other accoutrement that he has about his person?
Even though he's an Eladrin, he has found himself drawn to Tyr because of seeking justice.
Okay.
So he is a paladin of Tyr, but he can get a little morally gray when he needs to.
Interesting. That's some of the Feywild flavoring coming into play.
Exactly.
Okay. And then if you had to describe Alexander with 3 adjectives, what 3 adjectives would you use?
Intelligent, broody, enigmatic.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So just so not necessarily stonewalling, but just sort of a mystery when you encounter him, Alexander just is like you said, enigmatic. So just he's just very mysterious and you just don't know until you get to like befriend him and talk to him.
Exactly.
Ah, okay.
So he's the NPC with the shell to crack. But when you do finally get to know him, if characters or the DM has a kind of interaction for him as a NPC, he could be a very rich character. He could be like wind up your best friend. And I have a similar character in a Dragon Age game because Fenris is canonically in Dragon Age, whereas that kind of he's not as mean and grumpy as many people will take him. There's very good reasons for the way he's like this.
Mm. And again, yeah, that could be totally up to the DM to invent like, oh, what's the chip on his shoulder from his past, and like, what's the thing that he's got to work through to come out the other side as the mercenary with the heart of gold.
Exactly.
There we go. And now is the part where I get to say, and now we get to go back to some dice rolling if that's in our future here. We like all of our NPCs to have something cool on their person. So, what is going to be a valuable item, piece of lore, secret, or ideal or concept that the character would ascribe to? If you are interested in randomizing this is where we get to do a combination roll because we roll a d4 for the category and then a d6 for the particular thing.
You know what? Let's roll and see what we come up with.
There we go.
All right, so a D4. That was a 2.
Okay, this will be a piece of lore.
Okay, and then a D6, you said?
Indeed.
A 4.
4. Okay, perfect. Your answer was submitted by our previous guest, Kevin No. Alexander knows the best place to go fishing in the port town.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. Maybe something part of his backstory with the Feywild. Maybe that was something that he enjoyed doing was fishing. Maybe his downtime.
That was his happy place.
So then in the port town of your game, he just happens to know the best fishing spot where you're just kind of like, that's interesting.
Like, how do you know this? Okay, I guess.
All right, perfect. And then now we come to the question of, because obviously we want all of our NPCs to be able to have that bright gold exclamation point when you find them. What's going to be your particular quest that Alexander would recruit the party or, hire them to go do something on his behalf? If you have an idea, you could say what it is. If you feel like randomizing it, that's a roll of a D12. If you want to mix and match, you could do that too.
So I'm going to lift this from the actual character Fenris.
Okay.
One thing that his personal quest in Dragon Age 2, in addition to kind of fleeing the evil mage that owned him because he's a former slave, he finds out that he has a sister. And he helps you. Well, you help him write to her because he was a slave. He's illiterate.
Mm.
And so there's the finding her, contacting her, and then going to meet her, which is all part of his personal quest. So there's after he's gotten his memories back, he knows who he used to be, is finding this either relative or someone. And it doesn't have to be a relative. It could be someone from his past that he wants to find again.
Okay, interesting. So, so potentially you could have Alexander there as like part of a pool of NPCs to be able to recruit because you're like, great, we're going to go in this dungeon. We need a paladin. And then as you get to know the paladin opens up and is like, hey, I just found out about this person in my backstory, and I would really like to get to know them and meet them and such. Mm-hmm. And so that's the side quest that he's going to offer up as far as asking for the party's help to get this done.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's a nice one. It's not always like, oh, go charging into the dungeon and go slay a Hydra. It's just, hey, I want to get to know this person from my past. Can you help me, please? Even stuff like that is really nice.
Yep.
With this side quest, we have to consider, success and failure. So what's going to be the reward for successfully helping Alexander make contact with this person from his past?
Obviously, you get to know him better. He's very happy he's gotten this person back. If it's his sister, he's got that family connection. If it's someone else, he's got a friend. Maybe it's a former lover, if that's the flavor of your campaign. And, your friendship with him increases, and he's kind of on call for you as an NPC going forward if he just doesn't hang out with you. Failure could be maybe before you can find the person, maybe they either leave town, maybe they die, I don't know, depending on how serious and dark your campaign is. Mm-hmm. Or he finds them and they're not who he thought they were.
Mm.
Because that is lifted from the actual Dragon Age character's thing where he does find his sister, but she betrays him.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Depending on how Shakespearean you want to go on that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So so he becomes a reliable retainer or follower character for sure in the future and whatever adventures you decide to go on for the success. And if for failure, depending on the flavor of like, oh, there's some NPC boss battle now you have to do, or, whatever it may be. Okay. Yeah. That sounds pretty straightforward. So, we do have some optional questions here as well. If you feel like Alexander needs to be fleshed out, or if you feel like Alexander's pretty good, we can head on to the next part of the podcast.
Let's try a couple of optional questions. Your pick.
Okay. Well, I mean, you did mention, illiteracy as part of a thing. So maybe this would be good. Does Alexander have a particular accent or language with how he speaks and interacts with people? Are there any idiosyncrasies in how he acts or speaks?
So he's, because of the way the way he was raised, because he was property, or his past of kind of being a mercenary and having to adapt around being other people. He's one of those people, I'm sure we've met them, where they can kind of adapt and mimic any accent, anything like that. They can kind of just fit in, because that has been his thing of he has to fit in to do the job. If he's a mercenary or if he's a paladin, he wants to bring comfort to people. If he is bringing that part of a paladin to what he's doing. So he's got one of those accents that you just can't quite place. You're like, it's a little Faerun, it's a little Feywild, it's a little Barovia, depending on who he's talking to and where he is.
Interesting.
People who don't know him at all would read him as either a soldier on a mission or kind of stoic, but give him a couple pints, you might hear him laugh, you might hear him sing. And he can be very jovial once he is comfortable with you, but that is a long road. So you'd have to be a long running NPC to get there. So he can fit in, he can play the part, he can wear the mask, but he's also very much a from everywhere and nowhere at once kind of character.
Okay. And then let's see, I'm just trying to think, goals and motivations of Alexander as a character. Is it just making contact with this person? Is that pretty much what's driving him?
That's a big part of what's driving him. And then depending on how people want to play the backstory, if they want to tie it kind of almost canonically to like the original, the inspiring character is he gotten the Oath of Vengeance part of his paladin storyline done? Has he gotten to the people that have wronged him or misused him, kept his memories and his life from him? Because he's gotten his memories back, so he knows he has his list. Has he gotten through that list? Or has he gotten through that list and is now working through I got my revenge. I guess what do I do now? Because many times you have characters that have a vengeance oath or they're on a path of revenge, and it's like, cool, you got your revenge. Now what are you gonna do? And kind of that, to me at least, for me as a player, is very satisfying to do, like get past the revenge portion, because then there's the okay, now what? That a lot of media doesn't really deal with.
Right.
It's like, okay, I got my revenge. I guess I'm here now.
Right. Which is, I finally finished my first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, and I made a version of Duncan from the podcast, so the chaotically good Battlemaster fighter guy. So I had to reload the whole Goblin camp to do this, but, knocked out Minthara and then later rescued her and recruited her. So I know she's the prominent in-media example of like, oh, I'm the Oath of Vengeance, like paladin that you can recruit for the party. So, Duncan being a very good person and Minthara being like, let's suggest like the cruel or manipulative option. So it was very interesting over the course of that playthrough to, kind of wear her down as far as like, you are insane and crazy at times, but you know what? Maybe everything that you're saying isn't completely unfounded. So it was really nice to get to that turnaround portion. So by the end, she's kind of like, all right, yeah, I'm leading that rebellion against Menzo Baranzin. And, life is pretty good, sort of an angle.
Yeah, I mean, but, let's keep in mind that I don't think there's anything quote unquote insane or crazy about her, is that she was brainwashed. She's also a drow, and drow have a very particular social structure, and she was, if not royalty, she was very high up in drow society, and she was snatched away and made part of this cult. So she is also getting out from under the thumb of literally being brainwashed and escaping a cult, which it's hard to portray that in a way that doesn't overpower the narrative, but we are dealing with someone who is literally trying to recover from brainwashing and having an actual tadpole put in them that was controlling them.
Right. Which she was very clutch in Act 3. I definitely appreciated having her in the party with Karlach for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then do you feel like that's a good spread on some of those optional questions?
I think we're good. I think that works.
All right. Excellent. Well, we have a better picture and understanding of Alexander as a character. And you know what? I think it's time to throw him into a random encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by my sponsor, Zencastr. How do I use Zencastr? Well, that's the service that I'm using right now to be able to record my episodes of the podcast. It's what allows me to capture it all, put it into my editing machines on my new computer to get it processed and put forth onto the interwebs and podcast land for you all to enjoy. I was able to take part of this service, all thanks to my buddies Benjamin Huffman and Dane Fox McGraw over at the Dispel Magic podcast. And, if you were at this time in your life wondering what can I be doing? What sort of hobbies or things that I could be branching out to? Well, I'm here to talk to you today about Zencastr. It's so easy. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen. Knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. You can sound your best. Have you ever wondered what you might sound like? Well, Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically works to remove those filler words in your recordings, and it makes those awkward pauses in conversation dip out as well. You can set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. It's all in one. So if you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services these days in order to do a podcast, well, I can assure you that those days are done. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SIDEKQPodcast, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Again, go to zencastr.com/pricing, use my code SIDEKQPodcast, get that 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. Thank you so much for listening to this ad and for supporting the sponsor. It helps to support the show. And without further ado, on with the podcast.
All right.
All right. So this is the part of the show where we get to do a little bit of a role play, a vignette, a scene with the character that has been made here today. So I think Tanya will do a fantastic job of bringing a life and a presence, a gravitas to Alexander. But the question for me is, who am I going to be in the scene? Am I going to be one of my podcast adventuring characters meeting Alexander? Is this going to be at some point in the timeline, either like in the prehistory or like later down the line when, Alexander's learned of this person that he wants to make contact with, or I don't know, what sort of scene are you interested in showcasing Alexander in?
You've gotten to know him a little bit, and maybe it's a scene in the tavern. You've had a day of adventuring, you've gotten back, and you've taken on it. You've fulfilled a contract. Maybe you helped him as a way to get him to join your party and help you out. And he's feeling a little loose. You've all had a bit of mead or ale, and maybe just like a downtime conversation.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we could do that. So if you are wanting, like, we have these pre-made, if you will, adventuring characters that we use for this part of the show. So, we have a number of them to choose from. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Duncan. He's the recklessly brave adventurer for hire, happy-go-lucky, no task too big, no feat too daring sort of a guy. Fighter. We've also got Sonia. She's the warrior woman who started off as a barbarian and then multi-classed into a paladin who serves a god who wishes to redeem the undead. So that could be an interesting pairing. We've got Korak. He's the lawful evil, arcane, trickster, roguish dwarf. We have Chrisley. She's the herbalist, botanist, wood elf druid who multi-classed into a cleric who serves living memory. We've also got Orion, who is the astral elf illusionist wizard. There is Agape. She's the lilac-colored tiefling Sorlock. So started off as a wild magic sorcerer and then made a pact with Proserpina, the archfey. So now she's a Sorlock. We also have Lifespell, the necromancer. He's an old gnomish man, forest gnome, who's a necromancer with a skeletal manservant named Octavius. And then we also have Anne Boleyn Mithril Shaper, who's so far only been featured in one adventure, but she's a dwarvish bard character. So those are all the ones that have been created. And so if any of those speak to you, we could certainly have them in the scene with Alexander. Or if none of them sound good, we could totally make up someone new.
They can all just kind of be in the bar, and you pick the one that you feel like inhabiting today.
Ooh. Well, I kind of like the idea, and we haven't seen her in a while. We could maybe do Sonia, like paladin to paladin, sort of having like this way of opening up the conversation, and that might be cool.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. It's later in the evening. Everyone is trudged back after a successful contract. Some of your group was already there and meeting you for later adventures. Alexander is in a corner, back to the wall as usual. Large flagon of mead in front of him. What remains of a shepherd's pie. in front. And he's kind of looking around, checking out the room, seeing if he recognizes anyone, doing his usual scan the room to make sure that no one's going to stab him, because you never know. And he's just kind of kicked back, enjoying a few sips of mead when he looks up and sees you.
Yeah. Where we last left Sonia, she had finished up the cart job, the transportation job with Antoine and Mina, the fantasy truckers, if you will, who were carrying the dangerous materials. And, she had gone off to the pub with Hobart and Eliwick, other adventurers. So this is sometime later. And Sonia's just, feeling out the call of her god, of where she's being led. She's waiting to hear from Axios, who is this revenant priest who she views as her mentor figure. And so, she feels that ping. She looks over and she makes eye contact with Alexander. And so she'll see maybe an open seat. And so she'll say, "Oh, pardon me, is this seat taken?"
And he just kind of looks at the seat, looks at her, and just gestures with his mug. Nah, free country.
Yes, last I checked, it was the Lich's forces hadn't made it this far over. So she'll laugh and chuckle, and she'll sit down, and she flags over someone to like get her meal and stuff like that. And so she'll introduce herself, saying hi, or my name is Sonia, and I serve. Well, you can see her outfit, and maybe it's like very niche, sort of religious symbology for this very minor sort of deity. But she says, my name is Sonia, and I serve the one who wishes to redeem the undead.
Oh, interesting. And he takes a sip. And he points to one of his leather pauldrons. My name's Alexander. I served here.
Nice. Yeah. She rolls a religion check, and she does poorly, and she'll just kind of nod her head like, yeah, totally, I know who that is. Alexander can see on her face that she has no clue who he's talking about.
Oh.
And she'll just kind of, she kind of just smirks and chuckles to herself, just being like, it's all still so kind of new for me. I know it's been a while, and I've got Axios to kind of help guide me, but I wasn't always a paladin, or half paladin.
Half paladin, you say?
Well, I mean, it's like I started out as a warrior. Would get really angry, and I could just rip through whatever was in front of me. But then I met Axios and started thinking, you know what? Maybe there's more to just being really angry and ripping things apart, and getting problems resolved with violence. Now it's interesting, serving a god who wishes to redeem the undead. Don't always have to fight the undead. It's just trying to get them to see about making peace, moving on.
And Alexander just has a moment where he wants to ask a question, but then he's like, do I feel like having an existential conversation right now? See, he's a little in his cups by now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, so you deal with the undead. I serve a god that's all about justice. What made you decide to sit with me?
Well, sometimes you just have a feeling, and you just follow the call, right? That's what we do. We follow the call.
Yeah, my call was paved in blood and anger.
So not too different from how I started.
Fair enough. And he just kind of, he holds up his tankard mug. I keep calling it 8 different things. He holds it up. Cheers.
Yeah, by now she's gotten her stuff, so she cheers it and has a healthy chug of it. And yeah, no, she's like happy to converse, and as the conversation goes, maybe now she slowly feels that inclination to make her insight check, and maybe she does like pretty okay. And so then she just sort of like opens it up to him as far as like, so what's I don't know. I mean, I know thankfully you're not undead. I can definitely sense that, but it just seems like I felt a pull to be like, maybe he needs a friend, or he needs something help with, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm between jobs right now, or helping people, so maybe I need to help you.
And he just kind of pauses as he's about to take a drink. Did you say I need a friend?
Yeah, why not? I know it's a novel concept for folk like us sometimes, but yeah, friends. Yeah, friends.
What about you? What do you need?
Well, I haven't seen Axios in a while, so I mean, I'll have to go find him eventually. You accumulate experience, and then you just need to make sense of it with your mentor and check in and metagame speak, level up in your paladin levels, but have it make sense thematically. But she's just like, yeah, I've just got nothing going on at the minute, and I don't know. You seem like a capable fighter, and you know what you're doing, and the two of us out there on the road, I'm sure we could do some good. You could do some justice. I could help some undead find some redemption. Helping the people. And she gestures widely to the tavern, which of course, they're having this great conversation about religion and philosophy and theology and all these big abstract concepts. And the camera pans over and it's like farmers and peasants nursing over tankards and half paying attention and eating food and carrying on the dins of conversations where they don't know this great intellectual discussion is going on.
So he finishes actually taking a sip. He's like, well, I'm not always the best friend. I'm not always really good to know. But you're in luck. I actually just picked up a contract after finishing this one.
Okay.
And he very self-consciously pulls out this rolled up parchment and sits it on the table. It's written in the most rudimentary common that he can now read, but he still struggles. Mm-hmm. But he's never going to tell someone he just met that. It's like, yeah, take a look at it, see if that fits your undead thing.
Yeah. She's happy to take a look at it, and if she rolls an insight check to figure out whether or not he can read or not, she doesn't make a big deal about it. She's not going to gloat or hold it over him or anything like that, but she'll read it and she's like, yeah, seems straightforward job, just what is this, merchant caravan guard sort of work stuff?
It's merchant caravan, but also, and this is where you can come in, it seems like they need to go through Barovia. And from what I remember, there's a lot of undead sometimes there.
Oh, yeah. Axios has told me about that place. Said I wasn't ready, but then she has her epiphany moment of oh, but he said if I wasn't ready before, but now I'm presented with this opportunity to go do something about trying to redeem the undead. And so she's like, oh, well, maybe this is my chance. She's like, yeah, no, I mean, you need help against the undead. And well, that's kind of my God's thing. Hopefully they're more willing to listen. Yeah, take heed, take warning.
And he just kind of tilts his head and looks at her. He's like, I admit I'm intrigued because most undead I've encountered can't be reasoned with, so I'm intrigued by this.
Oh yeah, and she's happy to tell the story about Skinknose the Lich, who is the beekeeper who she helped to bring to resolution, helped convince a lich to give up their lichdom. To find rest in the afterlife. So she tells a couple of different stories, and she's like, oh yeah, and this Death Knight, there was a whole adventure with having to find this gambler's ring and releasing a Death Knight from some whole, someone had a hold over them, and yeah, now a Death Knight is back to being alive again, and their old bard self. So,
that's impressive.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's happy to continue the conversation and talk game and figure out stuff. And so is there anything that would kind of close out the scene as far as the two of them are at the table, they're hunched over, they're making plans, they're looking at maps, they're checking out gear, comparing equipment and stuff that they have. So what would close out the scene?
He gets them another round and, he asks to learn more about her god because this is a minor god that he's not heard of. And he offers to explain more about Tyr because from what he can pick up from her, she's very interested in the justice of helping the undead find a resolution and not be undead or something, because he's still a little, he's not flabbergasted by it, but this is the first time he's heard of the undead being like helped in this way. Because most undead he's encountered, usually it's like take off their head, make sure the undead become really dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so there's an exchange back and forth of learning about each other, and as the scene closes out, it seems like two paladins are finding a fast friendship between the two of them.
Yes.
Scene. So there we go. There was Alexander presented for the podcasting world to hear. So how was it getting to be Alexander and breathe a life into him?
It was good, and it's funny because that's a little bit like how I've played Celise, at least when the show and when Rivals first started. But also I like the morally gray, have a wall up character a lot. And it just feels really good to inhabit that kind of not super goody two shoes, but not exactly evil character either, where there's a whole bunch of layers to peel away to get to know who they are.
Right.
Both for myself as the person who creates them, but also for the characters and the players that you'll interact with as that character.
Right. Yeah. Not quite an anti-villain or an anti-hero, but just, like a person. They just have layers. There's complications. There's histories. Mm-hmm. And as we sit and get to know each other, we can eventually, as silly as the analogy may be from Shrek, it's like ogres have layers like onions. It's like you just have to peel away at the onion and find out the core of a person.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is the part of the show. It's the final thoughts. So, obviously we love to hear how your experience was on the podcast and getting to make Alexander and be Alexander. So yeah, this is the part where, essentially I leave it to the guest. So anything you want to share or plug or talk about, these are the final thoughts of the show, of the episode.
So it's great to create and be Alexander. Definitely a character I would actually play in a campaign, either as a guest player or have as an NPC kind of in my docket. It was fun getting to hang out and just chat. I know we had a lot of email tag trying to figure out a time to sit and chat together. And, I actually miss doing stuff like this because I haven't got to do a lot in the TTRPG space recently. And as for what I've got going on, I'll be at PAX West. Got a creator badge approved, submitting some panels. By the time you're listening to this, hopefully PAX West may or may not have happened. But I am planning on being there. Forces are lining to make sure I can get there.
Right.
Hoping to make it to TwitchCon in October, but for the immediate future, until I'm back in a dev studio, still streaming a lot on Twitch, still doing a lot of things, trying to get Motherlands out the door, Cypher of Tier everywhere online. Come by, say hi, and also trying to get my own Patreon up because medication's not cheap. Thanks, U.S. healthcare system. But yeah, just, chugging along, taking it day by day. Because for those that don't know, the studio I worked at closed. Our game was canceled. And hopefully by the time you read this, maybe I'll be with it or listen, I'll be with the new studio. But yeah, just kind of taking it day by day, trying to figure out what I want to do with myself at my ripe old age. Hashtag air quotes as I say this because you can't see me.
Well, no, I mean you are a radiant human being, and you are young of spirit, and that's all that matters. Not necessarily any age that's on a piece of paper or document or anything like that. So no, that's good. I hope to have this episode out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, August 13th. So if that makes any amendments to what you've been sharing here in your final thoughts. Yeah, certainly we want to be able to check you out at panels and on your live streams and on social media. So that's amazing to hear. So yeah, I'm just so thankful that you were able to take time in your schedule to come on the podcast and speak with me. So yeah, totally.
That was great. Thanks for inviting me.
And I can't wait to have you back on, making even more interesting NPCs.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, or YouTube, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app or player of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram/Threads, Twitter/X, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. You can also find our small Discord community as well online. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. And hey, if you'd like to hail the bard and send me a message, an email, you can do so by communicating with sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creations section of the podcast, I do in fact have a Patreon for Sidekicks and Sidequests. If you love this podcast and what we're trying to do here, I would appreciate it if you would just go to the website, patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy.
Meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards.
Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast,
LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.